Good morning, I'm Jason Powell and I own Petals from the Past Nursery in Jemison, Alabama, where we specialize in antique roses, old-fashioned perennials, heirloom shrubs, and hard-to-find classical varieties of fruit trees and vegetable plants. And this morning we're talking about how to buy the best plants. This is a variety of pansy, for instance, called Sky Blue. It's fantastic color-wise, and it's easy to look at this and decide, well, this is the one that I want to have. Look at all the blooms that are there. But if you're looking at this plant from the standpoint of purchasing it today, in my opinion, it'd be better to go in with the plant that has mostly buds. These are going to continue to open up and flower throughout the season, and if you look at these guys, we've got loads of blooms still to come. Nice, compact, full plant. And once you've decided, all right, blooms versus buds, next thing we want to tackle is looking at the foliage, both top and bottom. What we're looking for are any signs of insect or disease problems. Once we've made a decision, hey, all right, this is nice looking, if you want to go the extra mile, don't be afraid to loosen that plant, sliding it out, and let's have a look at that root system. Now that is beautiful, a nice, healthy white root system that's hair-like. I also see some soil on the bottom, so we don't have a root-bound plant that we've got to worry about really tearing those roots apart. This plant's ready to go in the ground. I'm holding two perennial salvias here. These are Mexican bush sage, Salvia leucantha, that we like to grow for August bloom all the way to frost. Now, in choosing one, I know I only need one because it's going to be 3 to 4 feet tall. It's going to be that wide by the end of the season. So which of these two plants? They both have blooms. They both got nice strong stems and leaves. But I notice on this one, I've got a leggy growth habit. One stem coming out from the base. This one, if you notice, has got a wonderful stem coming out from the base and this white new growth also. And that's going to give me a better start in my opinion. We're in the shade house this morning looking at an herbaceous evergreen perennial called Rodya. It has what are called crowns, and if you look at the base here, you can see a nice strong crown coming up from the soil line there. But as I turn the pot, I notice, look at this, there's a second crown here, a third crown here, and a fourth crown trying to run for the edge of the pot over here. That's encouraging to me. And if I'm trying to make a selection on this particular perennial and I've got two choices to work with, I notice this Rodya, beautiful, strong, healthy foliage, top to bottom, but it's got one main crown. So obviously for my investment dollar, I'm going to go for the perennial with the most crowns. To round out my perennial border, I'm looking at a couple of different phloxes. And one of the things that we want to be careful of, phlox in our area is susceptible to a fungal disease called powdery mildew. That's what we're seeing here, these white powdery portions that are on the leaves. It'll result in a kind of a distortion of the foliage. Well, that's something you don't want to take back into your garden. I do like the looks of this phlox. It's got excellent resistance and it's been growing right next to this other phlox, so I know I've got a tough customer here that must have good disease resistance. I'm trying to pick out the perfect perennial for my shade garden, and I've just found one that I really love. It's called Acanthus mollis, or bear's breeches. And I noticed, thankfully, I've got good foliage. We've got a nice, strong base coming out here. And one of the things that I look for, and that is a deal breaker for me, a plant must be accompanied by a plant label as far as I'm concerned. If you look at this label, of course, it's got its botanical name and common name. It says it'll grow in part sun to shade, and it'll reach a height of 36 to 48 inches. Well, that's hard to believe when you look at this cute little plant in this small little pot. Here's the plant going into its 5th year in a garden setting, and that began with one plant. This is the reason I like to make sure I have a label. With plants being grown in plastic containers, having a plant that's root bound is not an uncommon problem. This plant maybe has been growing, this is a redbud pussywillow, and it's maybe been growing in this container for, a little bit over a year. And when you go to lift this by the container, you notice maybe that it's attached to the base. If you look at the bottom of it, a close inspection is going to reveal, hey, that's a whole lot of roots. If it's my only choice and this is the tree I need, I can take some precautions to make sure that this works. If we cut away the outside of the roots, we'll be able to slip this plant out of its container. If you take this plant, put it straight into the ground, it's likely going to continue the path of root growth just in the circular portion. That tends to stunt the growth. Now, to make sure that that doesn't happen, we'll cut off the bottom ½ inch of the root system and make maybe a ½ inch cut to a ¼ inch cut, just down the line like that. This plant is now ready to go in the ground, and we don't have to worry about the continuing circular pattern of growth.